unique experiences that we had to go through, but it's Friday, yay. I want to welcome everybody to the Thank you, Madam Administrator.
You're
well,
half a step off today. That's okay.
I want to welcome everybody to the Appropriations Transportation State Agency presenters today. This morning we moved it back an hour, so I hope it was okay for them, but we just had, we were there until midnight doing some of those last night. So for many of us, we had very little sleep, and we thank you for giving us the opportunity to push it back, and we thank you for accommodating us. Madam Administrator, this meeting is being live streamed. I clicked on and it's still on the big screen, so I don't know. Is that, do you have to click yours? Okay, all right.
Madam Chair, it has to be turned off by the CTN computer.
Oh, they're probably still asleep too.
Or if one of the assistant clerks could go over there and just click it off if CTN isn't there, then yeah.
Can you do that? Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Taylor. Thanks for hanging in there. All right, let's get started. So first up, we have the Department of Motor Vehicles, and we have, I love this, Tony, like we really need to know, Tony Guerrera, Commissioner. Welcome. It's great to see you. Great to see you. How you doing?
How are you, Representative Walker? It's so good to see you. And I definitely can understand you being a little bit tired, your committee. I heard that was a late night. You had a split with Zoom and in person. So again, I will try to be as precise as possible. But for the record, I just want to state, Representative Walker, that I am not responsible for Mr. Riley in the back there. So I just want to be clear that he did not come with the Department of Motor Vehicles. That's so first and foremost. So with that,
he'll be accounted for on his own. Thank you.
Co-Chair Senator Austin, Representative Walker, Vice Chair Senator Hartley, Representative Zoom, Representative Paris, Ranking members Senator Bertho and Representative Nuccio, and distinguished members of Appropriations Committee. Good morning. For the record, my name is Tony Guerrera, Commissioner of the Department of Motor Vehicles. Thank you for the invitation to appear before you today. It's always a pleasure to return to this building to visit people like yourselves. You have my testimony in front of you. I won't go through it. I know time is of the essence here, and I will open it back to you, Madam Chair, for any questions that you may want to ask. Good to see you, Senator Austin.
Nice to see you too, Commissioner. Thank you, sir, and thank you for being accommodating for our schedule this morning too. It really is important that we be able to be flexible in some ways, so thank you for that. The first question I'm going to ask is, according to our budget records from Office of Fiscal Analysis and from the Governor's Office, you have on record of 591 staff members in your agency. Could you tell me, first of all, do you have 591? If you have any vacancies, if you have part-time people, could you give us the numbers that you have on your record? And if you have some that are in the process of being hired, just let us know what you have there too, okay?
Well, thank you, Representative Walker. Thank you for that question. Yes, let me just start off by, we have authorized headcount of 591. It is right now we have vacancies of around 138. I think that number has come down, to be quite honest with you, at this time. And in the queue, Representative Walker, we have 92 right now that we're looking to hire.
I'm sorry, 92?
92, ma'am.
Okay. Do you know approximately where they are in the queue? Are they just coming in the door? Have they been in the process?
They are in the process and they've been posted according to HR. And like I said, the interview process is starting
Okay.
as of probably 60 days ago.
Okay, how long does it take before, when you identify Tony Walker as a candidate for Department of Motor Vehicles, from the time that you've identified me as a potential candidate, how long does it take me to get to a signed piece of paper?
From start to finish,
Yeah.
basically, correct, Representative Walker?
Yes.
So it's difficult to say in regards to the type of position to Representative Walker, because you may have someone that may need a background check, depending what that job specification is, fingerprinting and so forth. So that might take a little bit longer, although the fingerprint process and the background check has moved tremendously quicker than it used to be. But I would say probably 3 to 4 months from start to finish.
3 to 4 months.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so we have 19 in queue, okay. Approximately where are the majority of these jobs in your agency that you are trying to fill?
Thank you for that question. I would say, Representative Walker, that they're usually in the branch, somewhere in the back room, and they're scattered throughout in regards to the different divisions, but mostly in the branch areas.
Okay,
We lost a lot, obviously, through the retirements. A lot of the employees took that early retirement,
mm-hmm.
and it's been a difficult workforce from what I've seen too, whether it's the private sector or the public sector.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding that, it used to be at one time, everybody wanted a state job because you had the great benefits and so forth. But now, we kind of equaled out with the private side. So therefore, many of them probably take a position with the private side because they get more money up front. That's just my analogy.
No, I think you're accurate on that. I think that the glory of the state job has somewhat diminished. And especially because of salaries,
Yeah.
because of sometimes shifts, because of the pension offered with it, things like that. We've Senator Austin and I've gone and talked to different agencies out in the fields and trying to figure out what is the dilemma in trying to fill the positions. And quite honestly, most of the people are pointing, not most, but quite a large number are saying the pension, the way the pension is now set up.
Sure.
And then the other is the shifts.
Yeah.
Because the shifts are not complementary to them being able to work both for the state and for private, because of the fact that they don't get enough money to do just one job. They have to do more than one. So
And
Thank
Representative
you.
Walker, if I could say, first, if I didn't see this at the beginning, I want to thank the committee also for all your help for DMV, because we really have moved forward, as you've seen over the last few years. And it's the help of, the guidance and the vision of the governor, and
Mhm.
obviously the Appropriation Committee, the Transportation Committee, and members of the General Assembly, because we are a front-facing agency. And our mission is to make sure that everyone in the state of Connecticut is treated fairly and as quick as possible. I want to say that. And as we all know, that as of Tuesday, if you remember during that whole, what was it, a system downage that we all had, DMV did not miss a beat. Did not miss a beat. We took care of everyone that came through the door. And you didn't hear one complaint about people or in the news that something was occurring at the DMV.
So you have your own IT department. That was a question. That's the issue. We'd like to do that too, but we won't say. We won't go into that. So I noticed in the budget, there is an allocation for adult recreational cannabis use, and they've asked for 7 positions in there. Can you explain what is that going to be housed in your agency?
Yes,
And what is the responsibility for that group of people?
thank you for that question.
Mhm.
I anticipated, Representative Walker, that you may ask that. All right. And
We're
I've
great
known,
minds
I've
think
known you for a long time and you don't miss a beat. But I do have our legal counsel here. Yvonne Parker Bear that was instrumental in regards to the whole cannabis program, if you don't mind.
Come on,
could have her
Yvonne.
come
Come on, don't sit back down. She was sitting there on the edge of the chair. I knew she was waiting to come up here and just have these conversations. So go right ahead.
Good
First-
morning.
And
My name is Florence Yvonne Parker Bear, and I am acting agency legal counsel for the Department of Motor Vehicles.
okay.
And with regards to your question, yes, we do have 7 positions, and they are in various stages. In particular, we have hired 2 hearing officers. However, with the retirements, it somewhat exacerbated that problem. So we lost a couple hearing officers to retirement, and they are in process to be replaced, and we will be making offers next week for those 2 positions. We also hired a motor vehicle analyst as of December 16th, and that person has been onboarded. We have the 2 staff attorney positions, and we have 29 applicants for that position, and interviews are currently being scheduled. And then finally, we have 2 processing techs, one of which was onboarded on December 6th, and the other of which is in process.
So
And they will be housed within the DMV, I'm sorry.
now you have hearing officers and you have a motor vehicle analyst, and then the other ones, I forgot the other positions you said.
Processing tech,
Processing
staff-
tech?
yeah, processing tech, hearing officers, motor vehicle analysts, and staff attorney 2s.
Oh, and 2 staff attorneys. So what are you gearing your staff up to do when it comes to adult cannabis use? Are you working, let me say this, are you working with like Post or the state police, or are you working independently when you have hearing officers? So I'm assuming that if somebody's charged with usage while driving a car, then you process the person in the DMV, or does it go through the court system?
Okay, so I'll respond to each part of your question. First and foremost, for us, cannabis went into effect last year as of April 1st, 2022. So what we did when the bill passed, the week after the bill passed, we put in place a committee that contained 6 subcommittees to work toward putting the cannabis program in place. And those committees were our IT system changes, hearing process changes, training for both police officers, our hearing officers, our internal staff, administrative staff, and our case presenters. And then what we also did was we put a legislative group and an employment group together. So we have already taken action to put procedures in place. We also changed the 844 form, which is the form that's used to process these matters. And depending on the type of case that it is, one goes to administrative hearing for DMV and the other goes to the court. And so we have put in place everything that we needed to put in place to roll out the program successfully. So we did that as of April 1st of 2022.
Wow. Okay. I'm in the wrong territory, so I have to be good because we're supposed to talk about budget, but I guess I'm trying to understand how you work versus how the courts work. Do you work in tandem, or is it graduated sanctions that make it they start out in your area for like misdemeanors or usage or having an open container in the car or something like that versus actual driving under the influence?
Right. So if it's a 14227A, it goes to motor vehicles, and if it's a B, it goes to the courts. And it depends on the level of intoxication for what you're blowing. So we handle the per se matters internally, and we do work in conjunction with the courts. Because when someone goes through the court process, the court will send over the information to the Department of Motor Vehicles for us to log in what has happened with regards to that court case on that individual's driving history, their driving record.
Okay. I think this just lets me know that we approach probably have to have a specific hearing to understand where the usage and where these things go, because we did hear from DES, Department of Emergency Services. They're trying to get training to train they wanted money to get training to identify the usage of the person that they're stopping. And then you all come into the same thing. So I think we need to have a little, so I won't continue with this, but it's absolutely fascinating because we've talked about this, but we've never actually got into the process. And it's got fines, and fines have revenue. And so we just have to start to figure out where those items are. So with that, are there any other questions? Are there any questions? Senator Austin.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to make sure I heard it correctly. How many positions are in process?
92, Senator. Austin.
92, not 19, 92.
92.
Yeah, okay. Just wanted to make sure. So 92 positions are in process. And then relative, I asked you a question a couple of days ago, which I don't know if everybody knew this, but is it true that that if you just have to drop off license plates, you can just walk in to drop off license plates? Is that a true statement?
Thank you for that question, Senator Austin. And I will tell you the process now is that you can cancel your license plates online through our monetization program. But for those individuals that do not want to cancel them, they can just come to any DMV branch and just drop it off with the security guard, and we take it from there. No need to make an appointment.
Okay, great. That's wonderful. Because I didn't know that. And I had a couple of people emailing me about it. Can it be a possibility that we can just drop off our license plates? And now I can answer them and say, yes, you can. And then the other question, I think I asked this a couple of times, maybe over in transportation, relative to someone who has a license plate that may be offensive today, but may not have been offensive when the person got the license plate. Is there any way for people to sort of bring that up to someone's knowledge and perhaps address it?
Thank you for that question. That's a very interesting question, specifically in regards to what's happening today and what people may have had for license plates years ago. When we get certain complaints, Senator Austin, we do start to look at that vanity plate, and there's a Google called dictionary that we use to determine whether it's good or bad, or if it's just, even if it's on the edge of the border, that we won't allow it. So if we hear that there's a plate out there, there is a process that we can call and try to get that license plate back.
Okay.
It's a difficult process, but I will say this, I believe that, and I do have my legal guru next to me right here, that the commissioner does have the authority to pull that plate.
All right. Thank you for that. Because I've gotten a couple of constituents that have emailed me about specific license plates that are more meaningful today or have a different meaning today than they might have when they first came about. And so you said that when we had our internet glitch the other day, where we had to not do work for a full day, which Representative Walker and I don't like to cancel any of our days of work because we're on a very tight time frame to get the budget ready. And it really actually made a huge problem for us. And so you were able to go ahead and do your work. And you had no problems taking care of what you had to take care of, and people could come in and take care of their business at the regular time frames. That I think that's interesting. I'm going to put that away in my memory bank when we start talking about consolidating more IT.
Yeah, Senator Austin, with that, I just want to emphasize that we have a tremendous workforce at the DMV. We really do. Hardworking individuals. And the emphasis has been, as many of us know, many of you know, as legislators, the number one complaint always used to be DMV. Today, I'm happy to say that hopefully those complaints are minimum, but we always try to find a way to think outside the box. Never want to turn somebody away that came to the DMV that has to have a transaction done. And when the system did go down and we couldn't use credit cards on our system, our thought process was that if someone like yourself or anyone else that would come in and they didn't have cash, we would say, by all means, we took care of the transaction. Here's a pass, go to the ATM, come back in, no need for an appointment. You come right back in and pay. We did not miss a beat, Senator Austin, not only in Weathersfield, but within all our branches.
I think that that's important to know. And quite frankly, I used to get complaints from constituents about DMV. I get very few complaints about DMV, and more often than not, it's I need to get my mother's registration done or some obscure thing that is not a problem, more an individual problem than a system-wide
Sure.
problem. And your staff has been very responsive in taking care of those issues. I've had veterans email me from out of state. I need to get my registration or license renewed. You know, can you help me out? I'm having a hard time from where I am today. I need to get it done in Connecticut. And people have been very responsive to that. And I think that that's a direct reflection of you and the Department of Motor Vehicles and the changing of the culture there. And so I just want to thank you for that. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Austin.
Thank you, Representative Nuccio.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have thank you very much for coming. I just have a couple of questions. One is just logistically, you're going from 191 to, from 591 to 560, and I see that there's 38 transferring for IT, but that means it looks like you're adding a couple positions in there. Also, I'm assuming that's just the mix. The 38 coming down is why it's lower.
Yes, thank you for that question, Representative Nuccio. We have IT that's going over, but it's also adding in for the cannabis employees.
Okay. And then just from a high level question, I agree that I love the fact that there's a lot more we can do with DMV that's online now. But I do have, unlike Kathy, I've had a few people that have called because they're saying, you know, how come I can't just walk in, or, you know, I can't get an appointment. I got 3 months before I get an appointment. So I'm wondering if you could tell us what's the wait time for appointments and how people navigate that. And do we still have walk-ins available at DMV?
Sure. And thank you for that question, Representative Nuccio. Let me start off by the appointment system has changed drastically, right? Everyone used to come in, but you know, unfortunately at that time, lines were out the door. People were frustrated. They lose a day from work. They couldn't get their transactions done. They have to come back and then lose another day of work. So COVID expedited us in regards to the appointment system and moving many of our transactions online. With that said, all right, there is a certain population that doesn't have the technology, maybe like you and I, and we have seen that with many with our seniors even. All right, it's our belief, and that under our team and the governor's vision, that we want to start a mobile unit, one that goes out to districts, all right, or I should say municipalities, such as that we can come out to you now, to senior centers that maybe need an ID or registration. It's going to start very small. I want to be totally upfront with you that would do a few transactions, but it doesn't have to have them come back to the DMV. And this is something that we've done for our veterans. All right. We've done stand downs where we've gone out to the veterans home and done that. And we want to do that now for 162 municipalities. With that said, Representative Nuccio, I don't want to turn anybody down. And we have instructed every branch that if someone comes in that didn't make an appointment, greet them, ask them what their transaction is, and be honest with them and say, listen, you may not have an appointment, but if you're willing to wait a half hour, I will slip you in to get your transactions done. All right. We don't want to turn. I believe in customer service. Our team believes in customer service, and we are a front-facing agency. The governor has emphasized that he wanted to change the face of DMV, and that's what we're doing.
I can agree with you on that. I think, there's the change that's been in DMV, especially pushed forward by COVID. I think it's probably one of the shining, like you said, everybody has always complained about DMV.
Yeah. And Representative Nuccio too, I will say this, that, it's funny because you look at a license, it's something to drive, but it's really not. It's a lifeline for many of these individuals.
Mhm.
You know, we have a reentry program. People are coming out of jail. You know, it used to be you drop them off. They had nowhere to go. They had no ID. We're working now together with the DOC. All right. We're even working together to get individuals ready to get licensed with a CDL where they can maybe get a job making 80, 90, $100,000 a year. You know what I mean? We are changing that. We want to make sure that it's just not a license. A license is a lifeline for an individual. Wherever you go, and you know as well as I do, the first thing they say, can I see your driver's license? Not if you can drive, just as an ID.
Mhm. I agree. And the wait time for appointments,
Wait times, that's the best part, Representative Nuccio. Wait times used to be about an hour and a half at one time. Now you're probably looking to get a transaction done within 12 to 15 minutes.
oh, no, thank you for that, but I mean, like, if I need to go
an
online to
appointment.
schedule an appointment,
I'm sorry.
right, like, what's the wait line for?
I'm sorry. It depends. All right. I would say right now, talking to the staff, you're probably a week out, but that depends also, Representative Nuccio, because what it is if you looked in Bridgeport for an appointment and there was nothing there, our website is now starting to tell you that. Why don't you take a look at Danbury? Take a look at Norwalk. All right. Because we see 3 or 4 openings there. And when we do this integrated appointment system, it'll automatically pop up for you that will show you that Representative Nuccio is trying to make an appointment in Danbury, right, within a week. If you want to make it sooner, we have one in Danbury, we have one in Norwalk. So you can click on here to do that.
Perfect. That's great. I'm happy to hear that. And that just leads me to my last question. With the modernization of operational costs here, it says that the governor's recommended budget provides follow-on funding in OE for recently completed projects. And then the proposal reflects an increase in costs associated with the software license and database subscriptions at $500,000. So the $1 million that's in here, I guess, if they're completed projects, why do we continue to have $1 million in each year?
Well, thank you for that question. I believe that's more for ongoing modernization projects.
Okay,
we
so
have to-
not projects that were in here, other projects that you're
other
gonna be doing?
projects, yeah, we're gonna need that because Representative Nuccio, modernization is great, but what we've learned is that you have licenses, that you have bills to pay for after that, to upkeep those modernization projects. You know, I'm not, to be quite honest with you, I'm not an IT guru, but I mean, I've learned that there's Salesforce licenses that you have to apply for every year. We never had that before, but part of this system, now you have to put those into place.
Okay, so and then in the workshop meeting, if you can kind of just detail out
Sure.
what that $1 million is for.
Yep.
And then, in the head count, I didn't hear you mention part-time, so if you could kind of just tell us how many employees you have that are part-time, are they included in that 560, like kind of the head count breakout? I would appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I will say that one thing we learned when we started really looking at our IT system about 7 or 8 years ago is that for way too long, most of our IT systems hadn't been modernized in 20 years. So,
I'm not shocked.
yeah, I know. When I went to one, saw the green and white IBM paper in one of the machines, I was like, wow. So we don't want our machinery to go down, and I appreciate what your answer was, sir. Thank you. Representative Zalatow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually have a follow-up question to that, but I also wanted to mention that the experience that I've heard from constituents that have used the appointment system, they're absolutely delighted with it. We're closest to the Enfield office and it seems to be working well there. There are some frustrations with people who don't have access to computers. Do you have a phone number they can call to set up an appointment?
Yes, we
You
do.
do? Okay, I
Yeah.
wasn't sure about that.
We have a
I have to do
contact
that.
center representative that you can call there to ask, you know, if you can ask the information and go right there. And we just upgraded our website too. If you go on there, it'll have all the information for you.
Great, and somebody does answer the phone, right?
Oh, they better be.
Okay, because we've heard otherwise about other departments, but we won't talk about you, all right? No, I'm glad to hear that because people do get very frustrated when they call into
Sure.
government agencies and nobody picks up. So, anyway, so I had a follow-up question on the modernization operational costs under which is under the other expenses. If we could get a little bit more breakout on the other expenses for the working session, that would be extremely helpful.
I'm sorry, what part? Say that again, Representative?
Representative Nuccio mentioned the funding for a modernization operational costs, which are the
Okay.
ongoing ones. Those are supposedly, according to OFA, they're under other expenses. I was hoping we'd be able to get that down, just a little bit more of a breakdown on that.
Absolutely.
And the other question I have is on your write-up, now on the budget write-up, commercial vehicle information systems and network project. It's got pretty close to the same funding for like several years, including the upcoming 2 years. Can you tell me what that is?
Sure, I have Chris Smith with me right here. Come on up, Chris. Thank you. Or Deb. I have Chris Smith from our commercial division, also Deb Notarino, who runs our driver regulations area. Chris?
Please press the little button and then give us your name, please.
Sure. Christopher Smith, Division Chief. So this would, what we also call C-Vision. These are informational systems for commercial vehicles as far as registrations, CDL, and different projects related to our commercial vehicles.
Could you, is there any kind of breakdown? I'm just curious mainly because you have the exact same amount over the past 2 years and also coming, it's, $324,676 on this line item.
Mhm.
And just wondering what that is. And it's just kind of unusual to have the exact same amount to that precise level.
Right. I think I'd have to
Yeah, why don't we,
return with
Work
that.
Representative,
session.
I
Sure.
can get you that answer. in
That
the
sounds good.
working
And
Session.
from what I understand, some of that is also funded by outside sources. So if you could give us information on some of the other sources that you might be getting to pay for that whole thing.
Sure.
Yeah, but that's best work session. Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I understand that from what I remember, it's the maintenance of the operations that you have, correct? Yeah, that's what
It's-
yeah.
I
that's
would
what
say a major part of that, yes,
Yeah.
Representative Walker.
Okay, next, Representative Rosario.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Good to see you out there and your wonderful staff.
Good to see you, Representative.
Question, I have had a couple great experiences with the DMV over the last couple months. But my question does lead me to the replacing of the credit card system. Down in the Bridgeport DMV, I noticed that the machines were a little antiquated, and especially when it comes to the Spanish speaking customers, I noticed that it took a little extra time for your staff to help them navigate that system. And like you said, you're forward facing and customer service oriented. A minute or 2, 3, 4, 5 adds up, especially when you're dealing with every other customer that may have an issue, and it really backs everything up. So just had a question on what type of Spanish interface. I see you noticed something about here on the payment system, and will they be able to accommodate Apple Pay?
As you know, thank you for that question, Representative Rosario. As we move forward throughout the modernization, I think you'll see more and more technology out there, which obviously we even have a line for in regards if someone can't speak English, that we're able to call to get that individual help. We're just going to be implementing that. We're going to be implementing other languages for driving tests. That's going to be coming up. We just talked to the chairs of transportation on that. But in regards to Apple Pay and so forth, I can guarantee you that within the next coming years, you're going to see more and more of that type of technology out there.
Thank you, Commissioner. My second question is something that you touched upon earlier, which is the IDs for inmates returning home from society, from incarceration. And I'm also on the Judicial Corrections Subcommittee. So I'm not sure if the problem originates in that agency or ends up in your agency, but only about 60% of the inmates are getting those IDs. I know there are pieces of legislation floating around here, but my question is that problem originating in that agency going to yours, or is there something on your end? Because I know some states like in Arizona and Massachusetts, inmates coming home have their inmate ID that they, their state property. They show up at the DMV with their proper paperwork and they just do a one-on-one swap. So is that happening right now, or is there another system that you guys are working on?
No, thank you for that question, Representative Rosario. What we're doing is that we are working with DOC hand in hand to start doing this. We haven't been doing that in the past years, but through this committee, I have to say through Representative Walker, we are doing more and more of that. When we know that the inmates are starting to come out and they need identification, we will make arrangements to make sure that they can have that. As long as they have some proper documentation, it might have to mean a social security card or whatever it is. The problem was, as we know, is that inmates didn't have anything at that time. So they're coming out and they can't get anything. So therefore, what we're doing with DOC is making sure before they leave, let's get all the paperwork in place. So when they come out, we're there for them, get them an ID, get them in society to start working so they can provide a living for themselves.
Well, I want to say that, especially for the record, because I've seen you firsthand do that. You and your staff work with those coming home and making sure that, the DMV did everything possible to make sure that they got the ID. So just want to make sure that's something on your end that you need assistance with, or, manpower, woman power to help get that done, or if that's somewhere else down the line. But thank you.
Thank you, Representative Rosario.
Thank you. And I would probably say that would be a DOC issue, because it really is, it's case management in their regard. They have to find out where the paperwork is and everything. DMV just processes them once they get it. So that would be something that we will bring up later on today. I'm looking forward to it. Representative Exum.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Commissioner. Thank you so much for this information. And I have to say, I've observed firsthand a lot of improvements with DMV, as we all have noted. We've all had our run-ins, and it has greatly improved, and it's good to experience. I really like hearing about the mobile services idea. I think that would be fantastic to increase that accessibility to populations and communities. But I live in West Hartford. I represent a part of West Hartford, and we used to have a wonderful relationship with DMV and AAA. So I'm wondering what you're doing regarding that. There were some certain changes that took place, I think, during COVID, and just wondering if you still have some partnerships with places like AAA to just make the services easier. And
Thank you, Representative Exum, and good to see you. Yeah, we still have our relationships with AAA. They still do the licensing and so forth, along with Nutmeg Credit Union also. We've partnered with them too, an offsite branch in regards that they can do those type of transactions, which allows an individual that if they can't get an appointment with us, that they can go to AAA or even a Nutmeg. It's just another way to providing the service for our customers.
are you able to do the real ID and all of that at the AAA?
I know you cannot do the real ID at the AAA because the verification process needs to come through us.
It has to come through you. Okay. Thank you.
And
and-
that's a good point though, Rep. Just so the Appropriations Committee knows. As you know, real ID was due this October.
Mhm.
They postponed that now to, I believe, May of 2025 now.
Oh, good to know. Gives me a little more time. Thank you. That's good to know. And also, I received from several constituents questions around the language expansion. And I know you mentioned that before, but I would like to get just more information around that. There's been quite a bit of talk around that, and I think it's very reasonable given our population.
Yeah, and let me just touch quickly on that. We heard during the Transportation Committee, individuals who that are frustrated that don't have the language. We have 14 languages right now. I believe, Representative Exum, that our team is diving into this, that you will see hopefully by the end of session, much more than 14. The technology's there. How we integrate that and put it into place is something that we're working on, and I feel comfortable that we should get it done in a manner that you will be pleased with.
Okay. And that sounds like that would happen pretty soon.
I'm hoping
Okay,
by
so
the
just-
end of this session.
By the end of the session. That's great. Thank you very much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Hartley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, Commissioner, and thank you for being here and your team, but mostly thank you for your leadership. It's a new place, DMV, and it makes everybody thrilled because it has totally changed the dynamic, quite frankly, in a lot of constituent service. So for that, we are in your debt, sir. Just a few peripheral questions before we get into our work sessions. So you received, what was it, 3 million in ARPA money?
Yes.
Yeah. So can you tell me where those, gaps, or how you are making up those funds, or it was all one-time expenditures?
Thank you, Senator Hartley. That 3 million was used for modernization.
All modernization.
All
So that was
modernization.
infrastructure.
Yes,
So well spent, I should say to you.
I think so.
And that's another thing we're grateful to you for, because then we don't have to have this conversation of supplanting and how do we fill these buckets. And so this conversation about license language offered in multiple languages, and I know we've struggled with some based on the population. It used to be determined by population of a particular group. I'm wondering, because I have a lot of Albanians in my district, and we went back and forth with that being offered in their native language. Do you know if we are offering that now, or is that one that perhaps maybe is on the front burner?
It is, thank you for the question, Senator Hartley. And it is my hope that you will see that language. If it's not there already, I'd have to check, but
It is there.
It is already there.
Yeah.
But again, Senator Hartley, I just want to emphasize this, how important it is. Today's technology should allow us as a department that it doesn't matter whether you're Spanish, Italian, French, Albanian, doesn't matter, that there should be some type of mechanism for you to take that test, whether it's Google Translate or a line service. All right. It's just, how do we implement it? And that is what our team is looking at. And I think it's something that you'll be pleased, like I told Representative Exum, that by the end of session, that not only will we have 14, I'm hoping that we will triple it.
Well, that's really good to hear, because, we are so multicultural, and for a long time, as the Albanian population has expanded in the 15th district, there have been a lot of, requests for that. And once again, it speaks to them, being legitimate on the road, being able to get to work, and
Exactly, Senator Hartley.
it's a quality of life thing. So that's really important. And so, hey, how did we do as a state on Real ID? I see that it's very much, the conventional identification these days, certainly at airports.
Yes. Thank you for the question, Senator Hartley. Real ID, we're up to almost 68%. All right. We're one of the leaders.
That's pretty good.
In the United States. And as I was explaining to Representative Exum, that now I still think that the feds are going through some of the changes. They don't want to interrupt the airline industry so much because of COVID. They extended it out to 2025 right now. But I don't think, Senator Hartley, we're ever going to see 100%, because some people will never get the Real ID. You know what I mean? They'll be happy with their license. Some people don't travel as much as other individuals, but I do believe that by 2025, we're hoping that we can hit a number that is sufficient as one of the leaders in the United States.
Well, that's good news. And quite frankly, that's a great number for us to be touting this. 68, we're almost to 70%. It's what, the social security number, a birth certificate, and like 2 pieces of mail.
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, now we are so spoiled because we can renew online, and and truth be known, that's what's kept me from getting the real ID
Well,
because it's too
Senator,
easy.
Senator Hartley,
too easy.
you should be the spokesperson for it. You know, look at you. You know right off the top there.
Well, I have to tell you, I mean, I keep saying I need this, I want this, but it's too easy to do that online thing. And so that's once again a compliment to you all for making it too easy for us.
And it's a team, Senator Hartley.
Yeah.
It's compliments to the team.
Well, thank you for that. So I'm just looking at, our summary budget sheets and, there's some,
Could we
Interesting.
possibly have the questions?
more-
What, okay, because we're at the final line. We still have
Okay.
one more person.
and they could, yeah. So, we're showing, OE as about an 8.5% increase. And, these are smaller numbers, but I'm assuming maybe it's because of cannabis, but we could talk about this when we get to the work group. And then the other one is equipment. It's a big increase, percentage increase, but these are small numbers. And I'm not sure if that's related to cannabis too. So maybe we can talk about why those, more
I will
robust
mark them
percent
down.
increases appear there. Okay.
You got it, Senator.
All right. I appreciate that. And thank you once again. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And Representative Moncello, you were the last one.
Representative DiCaprio. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sorry.
My question, thank you, Commissioner, and for you and your team and, the initiatives you're taking to streamline government. It's just really, my question's pretty easy. I just want to know, is there any other, modernization initiatives you have that maybe you haven't talked about, maybe just that you wanted to showcase, on a high level?
Sure.
That's it.
Thank you, Representative DiCaprio. Absolutely. And that will be the integrated appointment system. What that system will allow us to do, all right, will not only give you an appointment, but we'll ask you what your transaction is. We'll ask you to download the information to us. So prior to coming to us, we will tell you whether that document is correct or not. So therefore, when you come to the Department of Motor Vehicle, you will have a successful transaction.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I so apologize, sir. Sorry. Well, thank you very much. And we look forward to having some conversations in the working group. And we're going to try and do a separate one just for adult cannabis use, just so that we as the appropriations can understand it. So thank you very much. As usual, you were great. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Walker. Good seeing everyone.
Good to see you. Next, we have the Department of Transportation. My goodness, is there anybody in Newington? Commissioner, I think you've outdone DSS, and we'll see if you outdo judicial. Judicial usually brings a whole crowd too. Yeah. There is no question that will not be answered here today.
Oh, can't promise that.
Oh, I have faith in you, Garrett. You can go ahead and start. Go right ahead, sir.
Senator Austin, Representative Walker, Representative Nuccio. Thank you for having Department of Transportation here. My name is Garrett Euclid. I'm the commissioner. We still do have a lot of people left in Newington today. I did submit my written testimony, so I imagine we can just go right into questions unless you want me to have an opening statement.
No, we can go right into questions. I mean, I think because we had to shorten it because we needed a little sleep this morning. So we appreciate your accommodating our schedule with that. So we'll just go right into questions with that. And first, I would like to just start out the standard questions on your employees. In the budget sheets that we received from the OFA that addressed it from the governor's presentation, you have currently right now 3,567 employees on our records. Can you tell us how many of them are allocated in your budget? How many are in the queue? Because I know there are a lot in the queue. And part-time, you can give us a breakdown later, but right now we want to know how many full-time.
Yes, so we are authorized at 3,567. We currently have as of last Wednesday, the 15th, we have 3,018 people on staff, 549 vacancies. The vast majority of those are underway in the process of going through core CT or the interview stages to try and be filled.
I'm sorry, could you say how many are in the queue?
So there's 549 vacancies and over 400 of those are in the process of various stages of entering into the core financial system, interviews, offer letters.
Wow. Of the 549, I have a feeling I know this answer. Are those mostly engineers?
Not all of them. I have the exact breakdown. Around 243 are in our Bureau of Engineering Construction.
Okay.
And 177 of them are in our Highway Operations Bureau. So
Okay.
a large number of them are maintainers, as well as what we call QCWs, the mechanics who fix all of our equipment.
Okay, all right. I remember we've been talking about engineers as but it's a statewide issue, so that is something that and I would assume that all the highway people are getting ready for that exciting snowstorm that we're going to have on Monday, the one of the year, So we expect, and I want to thank you guys for being so vigilant about trying to maintain our highways and our transportation. You guys do a great job, and if anybody has a chance to go to your headquarters and actually see your operation, I think they would be extremely impressed. I was, so I thank you for that.
Yeah, they do a great job.
Senator Austin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So my first question is relative to the Connecticut Work Zone Safety Awareness. As you, I'm sure, are aware, we had an unfortunate accident in Stonington relative to someone who was a police officer who was doing work zone safety and ended up getting hit. So what is this work zone safety awareness right here relative to?
So for many years, the department has wanted to stand up a program to raise awareness about how to protect workers on the roadways, educational campaigns, equipment, going out to public events and distributing materials to raise awareness about the critical life and safety issues. It is extremely dangerous for our employees, for construction workers, for police officers, for tow operators to be on the side of our roadways with traffic traveling at the speeds they're doing. So that's what that funding is anticipated for. And we can give you an exact breakdown of the proposal we gave to OPM in the work session.
I think that we would like to see that, because I don't think this police officer is going to return to work ever based on the accident that happened. So I think that that's something that we all want to be at least cognizant of, what we're trying to do to drive down the speeds of people.
Absolutely.
And then if you could bring to the work group, but I don't need the numbers now, are the impact of the decrease in the transit program and the non-ADA dial-a-ride, and what that will do for an impact for our transportation. And I think you've heard me talk about my last issue, and that's relative to the rail line. And my question on Shoreline East is, do you have the mechanical equipment if we put the money in the budget to bring that up to full ridership?
Yes, we do. We started using those electric M8 trains that's on Shoreline East. So we still have a full set of M8 electric fleet.
And do you know what the dollar amount would be to bring that up?
I do.
If you-
have that. I can give it to you right now, or.
Okay, great. And if you could give it to me for New Haven, to bring New Haven up to full too.
So on top of our current services, it would be an additional $13.5 million to do 100% service level on Shoreline East. But I don't have the exact number compared to the governor's budget. I just know compared to a current service level, bringing up to 100%.
Okay, and New Haven?
New Haven line, I'll bring that to.
Okay, great. If you could bring that to the work group. Thank you very much. Thank you, Garrett. And Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Zawatowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here. One of the things that jumped out at me immediately when I saw the write-up, is I've been on this subcommittee. This is this is the 9th year now. And what we're looking at the rail and bus operations and the amount of subsidy that we're doing on them. The combined total was in 22 was under $300 million. What you're requesting for FY 24 is over $500 million. I just wanted in the work group to be able to work our way through those numbers so we have a good understanding. I understand it is a public service, but this is a hard thing to explain to constituents. And we want to make sure that, you know, this money is being spent wisely.
Yeah, I do want to add, though, if you look at historical costs for rail and bus, the reason it was so low in 22 and 23 is because during COVID, the budget that passed slashed services, rightfully so, because rail ridership was down significantly. So it was artificially decreased during the last budget because we reduced services. So to go back to this, what you see there is to go back to where we were before on many of those lines.
And I do recognize also that you've increased service, even previous to those years. If I went back to my previous budgets with all my notes and everything, those subsidies were considerably lower. So if we could just get a reconciliation, that would be extremely helpful. You know, one of the things that somebody had asked during the session yesterday, I'm not sure if she's here, but it's something that's related to it, is that who is riding the rail for example, on the Shoreline East line? Are these Connecticut people that are running, or are they all going to Providence? Or, you know, I don't know if you have a sense of that or not.
So Shoreline East does not connect to Rhode Island. It stops in New London and it goes to New Haven. So
Okay.
It is all intrastate individuals.
Okay.
And it's largely a commuter heading west in the morning, east in the evenings.
Okay. And one more question that actually came from a constituent who was concerned about freight. Does DOT own or maintain any freight rail lines in Connecticut?
We do own most of the freight lines in Connecticut. They are leased to private freight companies for the most part. There are some private freight operators as well in Connecticut. And under the lease agreements, those private freight operators maintain them.
Okay, because he was concerned, he had looked up even the speed limits on some of the existing freight lines, and was very concerned about the condition if the speeds were limited to either 5 or 10 miles per hour. And so it's, you know, in the wake of the Ohio issue, it was a legitimate question for constituent. Be interested in finding out maybe a little bit more in the work group to which freight lines are owned by whom and who is maintaining them. So,
absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Representative Nuccio.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And welcome. How are you?
Thank you. Doing well.
It's Friday.
Yep.
We're really happy that it's Friday. I'd like to kind of focus in. I actually have quite a few questions for you guys that I'm going to send for like the work group to look at, maybe sum them up at the end and that. But what I want to focus in on right now is the paratransit lines. And I noticed that there are reductions in the ADA paratransit program. I know my people with disabilities in my towns, their number 2 complaint all the time is lack of paratransit, especially in the northeastern towns. And that, you know, if you don't live in a city, they pretty much don't exist. So I noticed that they're adding them up, you know, where 2.5 million reduce for ADA paratransit on the non-ADA dial-a-ride. But yet there is a massive expansion for bus services to support workforce transportation. So I'm hoping you can give me a little bit of color on the ADA transit. And I did read your read up that said that it's based on usage, but I'm going to challenge you and the governor's office on the fact that it's not available to a lot of areas that need it, which we could expand and actually offer paratransit to some of the smaller towns, especially like I said, in northeastern Connecticut or northwestern Connecticut that don't have it. So can you give us a little more detail on the paratransit numbers, please?
Yes, and Lisa Rivers may want to come up, but I'll take a first stab. So the ADA paratransit line is federally required ADA paratransit services. It's when you have fixed route service like CT Transit, like Greater Bridgeport Transit, SEAT. When you have a fixed route service, we are required by federal law to have paratransit services for individuals who cannot reach that bus stop. I think it's within a mile.
3/4 mile.
3/4 mile. So the ADA paratransit is only, that line item that's for individuals who live within a certain distance of those fixed route services. So it is purely a subsidy based on usage. For instance, in the Hartford region, Greater Hartford Transit District is the transit district that provides that service based on your distance from a fixed route. And then we pay that cost for them. So as we do the expansion of the bus system in the governor's budget, that may increase the utilization of ADA paratransit, and our fiscal staff accounts for that. Whenever we do a budgetary request for a bus service expansion, we always account for an increase in paratransit utilization, an increase in an ADA paratransit subsidy. The non-ADA paratransit is different. It's not the federally required one. I don't know if you want to describe that one, Lisa.
So the non-ADA line item is simply dial-a-ride, as you were talking about. So it's not mandated, and it's not uniformly available across the state. It's a lot of it is based on some historical operations that were out there.
And Lisa's shop just rolled. Lisa, I'm sorry for not introducing Lisa. She's our transit administrator, Lisa Rivers. So her team just rolled out a new microtransit program. We put it out to all the municipalities. We believe that microtransit services are maybe the most cost-effective way to serve those areas where that fixed route may not fit. So those communities that don't have fixed route today, that microtransit option, where it's essentially like a public version, it's like a dial-a-ride type thing, that may be better suited for those communities. So we're looking forward to that pilot program. We think we can fund 5 to 7 pilots across the state for a 2-year period. We think that will help us come back to you all with, this is the way we think we should be going in these communities, or we should tailor it a little bit differently. So that's where in the future, we hope to come back with an option for you all based on pragmatic on the ground experience in Connecticut.
So I'm familiar with that. I was on that call, the webinar call. I had my towns on that call also, because as I said, this is a major issue for my area out in Eastern Connecticut. My problem with that program, though, is that it either requires you to have, you have to work with somebody who's going to provide that transportation, right? So that's a major holdup when you're talking about a small town, 5,000 residents or 14,000 residents. They don't have those services. So how are we helping them get matched up to somebody who can provide the micro paratransit? Is that in here somewhere? Because what you had said too is with the expansion of the bus ride, there's going to be a paratransit aspect to that, paying for the federal piece of it, but this has a $2.2 million reduction in it. So
we still think there would be a reduction in utilization in paratransit compared to current services based on how many people are using it today, accounting for an increase with an increase in our fixed route services. We still believe that there will be a reduction in utilization because there is the increase in telehealth. Not as many people are using ADA paratransit today.
There's a lot I'd like to talk about on this, and Tony's given me that eye. So we're gonna save this for the work group, but I think there's a lot more that we kind of need to vet out in here, and what it would look like for us to expand from the 1/4 mile to 1.5 miles, or again, I think the microtransit is a good idea, but I think our small towns, you're still not considering the fact that we don't have that now. So I don't have somebody to partner with to provide these rides in a grant program. And that's where it's problematic. Because my residents don't want to move to Manchester or East Hartford or Hartford to be within 3/4 of a mile of a bus station. They want to live in the towns that they live in.
Right,
And
that's
that,
what the microtransit system is intended to fill that gap.
right,
So they don't have to move to maintain their mobility.
okay.
We'll discuss this at
Yeah.
the subcommittee.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks. No,
We'll bring details.
because I'm getting volume over here too.
Good.
So-
It's
so I-
because it's
Yeah.
the Tammy Square.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Let me just give you the lineup of people that we're going to do in the next 20 minutes. Representative Rosario, Senator Hartley, Representative Osborne, Representative DiCaprio, and Representative Chaleski. So I just want to let everybody know where they are. Thank you, Representative Rosario.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm going to ask you 3 questions and you can leave them all for the subcommittee. First of all, good morning. Congratulations on your appointment. I know under the last commissioner, we wanted to address the issue with the engineers. And I know we talked about the University of Bridgeport. They had a wonderful engineering program. And I know there was some legislation that was passed to help kind of do a pipeline to DOT. Wasn't sure if those conversations were ever engaged, they continue, or if you give me an answer on that. Number 2, can you show us where in this budget does it reflect the safety and security of our underpasses? I know in Bridgeport, we have had very serious issues with tent cities under I-95, Route 825 connector. I think it puts your employees at risk, as well as those people that need the help, that we need to triage them to where they need to go. That's number 2. And number 3, I've been up here as my 5th term on transportation. And I'm going to continue asking this question. I need an update on the Barnum Station and what it looks like now, because I know it's changed over the years. So if you give me those 3 at the subcommittee work level, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Senator Hartley.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair and Commissioner Euclid. So I think this is your first time appearing before us in this new capacity. You are no stranger to us, sir, here in Hartford, but also in all of the districts. And I thank you also for, being so available in the Waterbury, particularly the Waterbury Rail branch line discussions, which we will continue. And I'm going to follow on with Representative Rosario because I've got to excuse myself for another meeting. But what I'm interested in as we sit down and roll our sleeves up is, so federal money, everybody seems to think that we are flush with money. We really are not. And the dollars that are, if I'm understanding correctly, into DOT represent $1 billion increase, as opposed to some people are talking about 5 point something billion. So the real delta is about $1 billion. I'm thinking.
It's a little over that.
It's a
Senator,
little
but yes,
over.
it's not 6 billion.
Yeah, right. People are talking about we've got $6 billion, but there is this whole opportunity for competitive grants. And that's what I'd like to know, what the plan is for Connecticut and how we anticipate faring in that, because that's a very competitive process, but it's important for us to know and try to also help you all, in that area. And then I'm going to just ask you to follow on to Chairman Austin's comments about worker safety. So I have been informed by some workers that we in the state of Connecticut nowhere on our highways, in our rest stations, anywhere, recognize those who we lost on the highway, the DOT workers who we have lost. And apparently other states do that. I'm wondering if there is anything that you might be able to initiate so that there is some place in the state of Connecticut where they are named and recognized, that they are there, forever, that not forgotten.
I will say, Senator, just on that, we do have a memorial at our Newington headquarters campus.
Yeah.
Which I know is not necessarily publicly visible.
Right. How many people? Yeah. Okay. So maybe we could talk more about that. And then, yeah, I'm interested in the update on the baggage center, of course, at our favorite place, favorite topic, the WBL, and then if you could also give me an update on the situation with the Waterbury to Hartford bus line. You know, we were shuttered for about a year. It was contractual problems, and we did this circuitous alternative to Meriden. So I'm wondering where we are and what the ridership is there. So thank you very much, and thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you. Next, Representative Osborne. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the opportunity. And good afternoon to the Commissioner. I am Representative Zawitowski referred earlier to somebody who asked a question about where the trains are going. That was me. And I'm wondering if you can tell me, I do understand the shoreline, terminates in New Haven, and Hartford terminates in New Haven, but are the people who are riding these lines, are they staying in New Haven? Are they entirely intrastate travel, or are they ending up elsewhere? Are they going to New York ultimately? And I'm wondering what the impact to Connecticut commerce is.
Representative, that type of data is not collected based on the purchases of their tickets, because someone on the Hartford line may come down to New Haven and then purchase an Amtrak ticket to go to Washington, D.C. So we don't have access to that. What we do when we do our long range transportation plans is we use a methodology called an origin and destination study, which can look using anonymized cell phone data, look at where people are going to and from. And that's generally what we use to do transportation planning. I can tell you, within the Metro North system, for travelers traveling on the Metro North New Haven line, we know that 76% of those travelers on the New Haven line traveling from Connecticut end up going to Manhattan. But we don't have someone from Shoreline East where they may transfer to, and similarly on the Hartford line, where they may transfer to. I do know there are plenty of people who work in Hartford who take the Hartford line up north from the New Haven region every day. And so it's not necessarily going to New Haven and transferring. It may be New Haven up to Hartford and working at Hartford for the day and coming back south.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions. Next, we have Representative DiCaprio. And then the last person is Representative Chaleski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner, and your team for coming in. I have a little experience with DOT personnel out in the field on the side of the highways, and I know how dangerous it can be, with the traffic situation. Just I worked in the emergency response group at Environmental Protection, so and you have a lot of fine people out in the field too. I'll tell you that. But Commissioner, if you can elaborate a little bit on the transportation to work line, what that is, and maybe share a little bit about that. Thank you.
Absolutely, Representative. So Transportation to Work is a historical program that has existed for many years in the budget. It operates to provide individuals who need assistance getting to and from their potential employment. And it's different in every part of the state. So in some parts of the state, the funding is provided to help pay for certain bus routes that were launched to serve major employment centers. So for instance, one of those bus routes that often people don't correlate with employment is something called the Bradley Flyer, which goes from Hartford to Bradley Airport. And that was initially started as a transportation to work initiative because the employees working at Bradley Airport weren't living necessarily there. They had to come from the Hartford region to get up there. So that bus route was launched for them. But a large portion of the funding actually goes to help provide services in Eastern Connecticut. The funding goes towards the Eastern Connecticut Transportation Coalition is the group, the ECTC, I believe it's called. And where they don't have bus service, the ECTC partners with individuals who are job seekers or just recently secured a job to help them get to and from their job. If their car breaks down, they'll give them a voucher for a rental car until it's repaired. help pay for a taxi ride to go for some of those job interviews. It's that type of connection. It's traditionally it used to be paid, it used to be funding going to DSS, which then distributed the funding to those funding partners. And several years ago, the funding instead went from us directly to these providers who we have contracts with already.
Thank you for that. I do have a constituent that just called, looking to go to college in Norwich and lives in Colchester. So we'll look into this and see if there's any opportunity here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next, Representative Chaleski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. My question is on the western side of the state, I've heard from residents the matter of lighting on our state roads and highways and the impact that has on safety. Many in Danbury will choose to use I-84 to get even from just one end of the town to the other instead of using back roads. And so we've seen many lights out on I-84. And I also know of a bill to possibly get more lighting on a high traffic route in an adjacent town. And again, because of safety and the number of accidents that have occurred in that area, is that a budget issue or a reporting issue?
So if lights are out on a highway, it's largely a capacity, workforce capacity to repair everything as quickly as we want to. We are short-staffed. Contractors are short-staffed. It's not necessarily a budget issue. So we get to those lights that need replacement as quickly as we can. In many places, lights may not be warranted due to the volumes or the nature of the roadways. We always do an illumination study to determine whether lights are necessary. It may not be the lights that are the issue with the safety on the roadway. It may be the curves where we can install some what are called chevrons, the arrows pointing that a curve is upcoming. But we have an entire traffic engineering division that can work and investigate any of the concerns you have for specific roadways in your community.
That's great. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Representative Zalistowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the second time. I just have a request to get some information for the working group. On the previously authorized positions, apparently in the 23 revised budget, there were 200 and some positions that you're hiring for.
Yep.
But then no money was involved in that budget. I guess the governor's budget does put in money for that, but I also have a note here from OFA that some of these are federally funded. Could we get a breakdown of what you expect that you might be able to get reimbursement from the federal government for these positions?
Absolutely.
For the work, that's why I mentioned,
Yeah.
I mentioned the working group.
The funding request does account for that breakdown of which ones are federally funded and which ones aren't.
It does,
And we
okay.
can give that to you though.
Yeah, that would really appreciate
Yeah.
that. And I also just want to mention one thing, Senator Hartley's idea about doing something more to memorialize the workers who were killed on the job, I think is an excellent idea. So
Absolutely.
thank you. Thank you, Madam
Thank-
Chair.
Thank you. Finally, Representative Belinsky. Representative Belinsky. Representative Belinsky.
There he is.
He's,
He's muted.
you're muted, sir. Representative Belinsky, if you want, you can submit your questions and we'll submit them to the Department of Transportation for your answers. I'm assuming there's a problem right now, so. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your testimony. And if we have any more questions, we'll have Madam Administrator submit them to you so that we can get those questions answered. So this concludes the first portion of our hearing today. At 1 o'clock, we begin with judicial and corrections. We'll have judicial, Division of Criminal Justice, Public Defenders, Department of Corrections, and probate. And that is from 1 to 5:30. So Have a good afternoon, and then we will have a public hearing at 6:30. Thank you.